Just let somebody else in, but they're not showing up on the screen. Okay, I did let somebody else in, but I don't know where they went. It says there's 4 people here.
Interesting. It's a ghost.
There we go. There we go. They popped up.
There we
Yay.
go. I was gonna say it's an
Yes,
interesting
that was
system.
strange. Great. So I wonder, like, if I have a lag on my internet. That's fantastic. We had
Fine on my end, so
okay,
hopefully
good. Yes, so if the problem arises, it's on my end. We had Jordan in a while ago to talk about like rest and recovery and just what working out smarter. And the service got so bad, he like fell off. So we had to like have this conversation while he got relogged back into the meeting.
yeah, one time I was running a challenge and I had to drive like 5 hours one night, but I had a guest come into my group. And like luckily he was like, okay, like I got this, because I got disconnected when we were driving through the tunnels.
Oh yeah.
Because I was like in the car live streaming with a hotspot, and he was like, don't worry guys, like we're good, hopefully Hannah comes back. And like 5 minutes later I was like, hey guys, I'm back. But I was lucky that he took over.
Right. No, that's cool. But that's awesome that, like we can be going places and doing things and we still can stay so connected with our groups. I think it's fantastic.
That's really neat.
Awesome.
Powerful
Well,
technology.
right. Yeah. When it works right. When it works right.
For the most part, it's a pretty cool thing.
Right. Yeah. I will second that. But anyhow, thanks for joining us, ladies. We're going to go ahead and get started here. If you have questions, you can raise your hand. You can pop them into the chat. And we'll make sure that we get those answered for you. But I just want to go ahead and introduce. We have Hannah Burns joining us tonight. Hannah owns her own nutrition company, Unreal Fitness, which is a really cool name. And she's coming in to talk about how we can eat more of the things that we want to eat and still look really good naked. And I believe we're also going to touch on motivation, which I'm super excited to talk about. So at this point, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Hannah. So if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. You can raise your hand. And if you're on Facebook, we are monitoring that. So you can go ahead and drop your questions there in the comments, and I'll make sure that Hannah can see those. Somebody has already said that looking good naked is really important.
Yes, it is so important. And also eating your favorite foods is very important to have a life that is worth living and enjoying. So we'll definitely talk all about that. Thank you for having me. I'm excited that you guys are here to listen to me. I talk about these things all the time, and just like being able to share it with other people is exciting anytime I get to do it. So thank you for inviting me and being here. Like Clarissa said, I do have my own business, Unreal Fitness and Nutrition. I got into fitness, actually just made a video about this earlier this week. Like I got into fitness to help my friend like feel more comfortable in our gym at school in college. And it really just, because I worked there and I was like, yeah, whatever, it's the weight room. And then it turned into a whole lot more. And I was like, why am I in school for business? Like, I want to be helping people. And so I had a little bit of a quarter life crisis. And like, really just at that point was like, okay, like I need to make this work. And a few years later, I ended up starting my own coaching business. And then I was like, okay, there's a missing piece, and it has to do with nutrition. And that was really the big missing piece for me for a long time too, because I was doing a lot of things in the gym and I was just like, it just doesn't seem to be adding up. Like I feel like something isn't right here. And everyone was like, give up this, stop eating this, stop eating this. I tried a whole bunch of different things and nothing worked. So then I figured out that missing piece, and really focusing on like being able to enjoy my favorite foods really helped me to see the most like beneficial and sustainable results and like feel good doing it. And then as I started working with more clients, that's like what we work on. So that's why I love talking about like eating what you want and still looking good naked. And like Clarissa said, we will touch on the motivation versus discipline aspect at the end. And honestly, like feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions. If you have questions, pop them in the chat. I'm open for being interrupted because I interrupt people all the time. So feel free to just pop in and ask if you have questions as I go. So first things first, when it comes to eating what you want and still looking good naked, is knowing that there has to be a balance, excuse me, of eating what you want and eating foods that are nutritious for your body, because sometimes the foods that we want and that are our favorite foods might not be the most nutritious choices, but that doesn't mean we don't eat them. It just means that if we're going to have that food, so I'm going to use cookies as an example because I freaking love cookies. So like if I'm going to eat cookies today and I have made chocolate chip cookies and I want to eat 2 chocolate chip cookies today, yes, I'm going to eat them and I'm not going to like restrict myself from eating a meal because of it. But what I'm going to do is think, okay, if I'm eating these 2 cookies, what other processed foods in my day can I like shift out for the couple of days where we have cookies in the house, and what more nutrient dense foods can I put in? So I like to think of the balance of primarily 80% more whole natural foods like single ingredient things, and then 20% are more processed, less nutritionally dense things like bread and cookies and donuts and ice cream. So 80-20 is a big rule, so to say. You don't have to be perfect 80 and perfect 20, but it's a good benchmark. And then if you can manage that 80% most of the time, then the 20% doesn't really have much of a negative impact at all. What happens is if you let that 20% creep to 30% and 40% without adjusting what's happening in the more nutritious side. So what I mean by this is like, say today I had 2 cookies. I didn't actually have 2 cookies today. I had cheesecake, half a piece of cheesecake today. But if I had 2 cookies and half a piece of cheesecake today, then maybe tomorrow I'm not going to eat either of them so that I have a more nutritious day tomorrow. Whereas if I were to let that 20% continuously slide into a bigger number throughout the week, that would mean like, okay, maybe tomorrow I'm eating cheesecake and cookies too. And then the next day. And so then that 20% turns into a bigger number over the week, where a lot of that calorie consumption isn't being utilized to do what we want, which is typically to build muscle, to lean out, to lose body fat. And the less nutrient dense foods we consume, the less they're doing for those goals. So when you're trying to eat your favorite foods, when you want to go out to eat, or if you want to go out for drinks, just think like, okay, where in my week can I adjust to add in some more nutrient dense items, as opposed to just restricting the day that I'm going to go and enjoy these things. Someone said something in the chat, 20% of calories, 20% of everything that you eat in the week. So yes, so like 80% of your macros come from whole natural foods, more nutrient dense. So like foods that are single ingredients, so foods from the earth. And then 20% are those things that are more processed. So things that come in packages, things that come in containers, things that you get out at restaurants, because typically restaurants, they add in a whole bunch of stuff that you wouldn't add in at home. And that's the 20%. So you can do it with macros, you can do it with calories. If you're not tracking those things, you can still gauge your 80-20 based on like my meals that I'm eating throughout the week. So like, is 80% of what's going into my body super nutritious and full of like nutrient dense things, and 20% less nutrient dense? Because you don't always have to be tracking to have this 80-20 balance. But that was a good question, Anne. Any questions based on that?
We have some stuff going on in Facebook, but I think it's super important to stress though that it's a weekly balance, because there is such a black and white thinking that what we eat today directly impacts the scale as far as fat gain or building muscle goes the next day, when that's not the case at all.
And if you, like I said, if I were to eat 2 cookies and half a piece of cheesecake, or even a full piece of cheesecake today, it's not the end of the world. Like maybe the scale tomorrow would be up a pound or 2 because there's like more carbohydrates, more sugar, which makes my body hold on to more water. That doesn't mean I'm 1 or 2 pounds heavier with fat. It's simply just the scale is higher.
Right.
You want to look at things like the averages week after week to figure that out. I know you said there are things going on in Facebook. Are there
Yeah.
questions there?
Yeah, so Chase has joined us and he always has really good questions. So he says, if I have to give up corn and sweet potatoes, I'll just deal with not looking good naked, which I think is very valid. And then your opinion on planning in your less nutritious foods. Like if you love cookies, maybe making them with a high protein recipe and factoring them in your plan so that you're not having to adjust the next day.
Yeah, so you can do this in so many different ways. Like actually, I did eat cookies today, a cookie. I make these 3-ingredient banana oat cookies. It's banana, oat, and egg. And then I just add in other ingredients to make them different flavors. So this time I added like pumpkin and chocolate chips and pumpkin pie spice and salt. And so like I did eat a cookie, but it's not loaded with processed junk. It's made from primarily whole foods, except for the chocolate chips, but like that is a more nutrient dense version of a cookie. But in my head, I don't really think of it as a cookie because it is made from more nutrient dense things. It provides more protein, it provides more valuable carbohydrates, it provides a good source of fat into my diet, and it also has a little bit of chocolate in it. So it's just like icing on the cake. So yeah, you absolutely can make things that are more macro friendly and fit them in. That way you aren't thinking about adjusting all the time. And even if you aren't preemptively thinking about adjusting, you can always adjust after the fact. So say somebody invites you out to dinner this week and you weren't planning on going out to dinner. So like most of your week was totally normal in comparison. Then you go out to dinner and after the fact, you can be like, okay, cool. I went out to dinner. When you go out to dinner, you can make more nutrient dense choices also. But like eat the dessert if you guys want to eat the dessert, because if you're anything like me, you like the sweets, you like the dessert, they make life more fun and enjoyable. But say you do go out to dinner, you have dessert, you have a meal out, definitely higher in calories, less nutritionally dense than something you would make at home, more likely than not. And then afterwards, instead of being like, okay, I ate more calories than normal yesterday, I'm gonna eat less calories today. No, just focus on, okay, I ate less nutritionally dense yesterday. So today, tomorrow, and the rest of this week, I'm going to try and have maybe an extra serving of veggies and a little bit less of whatever snacks I eat throughout the day so that I can kind of reboot my body to feeling the best that it can. I hope that answers that question.
It sounds like they make some, Chase makes some with that are literally that same thing, but just with protein powder.
Yeah, there you go. I honestly don't own protein powder because I just love eating protein things. So I know a lot of people struggle to get protein in, and it's definitely something you can do. Super easy. Just toss in some protein powder to oats, toss in protein powder to like a smoothie, even cookies, brownies you can make that are pretty nutrient packed too. So absolutely, if that's something that helps you with your nutritional goals, by all means, dive right in. Another thing I want to touch on is that this sometimes seems scary, like eating your favorite foods while also seeing these body composition changes that you want to see, like because for so long and for so many diets, named diets, they say you can't eat X, you can't eat Y, you can't eat whatever it is. And so then when there's me and I'm like, yeah, you can eat all of your favorite foods and you can still see your results, it's sometimes intimidating to be like, okay, well, what if like whenever I see cookies, I eat like 5 cookies? Like, okay, that's something else we got to work on. It's not the food itself that's the issue, it's something else behind that. And then just making foods off limits in general will make you want them more. I like to use the example of like, if somebody says, don't look, but you're immediately turning your head to look at whatever they're about to tell you about, even though they said, don't look, because it's just human nature to do something that we've been told not to do, right? Like you want to break the rules sometimes. And if someone says, don't look, you're gonna look. And if you say, don't eat the food, you're gonna think about the food all the time. And it puts you in more of a I don't want to say dangerous situation, but if you are somebody who has overeaten this food in the past, then you just say, I'm not allowed to eat it. When it's in front of you, you're going to want to eat it. And you might get a little bit carried away and eat too much of it and then feel crappy, physically feel crappy, and then emotionally feel crappy about yourself. And it can lead to this negative cycle of doing so day after day for a week or a month or a couple months. And that's where you get sucked into this trap. And so instead of making it off limits, allow yourself to eat all of your favorite foods. Just find a place for them in your diet. I always like to say, like, your diet is your diet. It's not my diet. It's not your neighbor's diet. Like, we all have our own because we have different foods that we like and dislike, different foods we're allergic to, different foods that make us gassy. Like, everybody's diet looks different. If you have a food and you enjoy that food, it belongs in your diet. And that's how you're going to have and see the most sustainable results, because you'll feel the best about the way that you're eating and being able to enjoy life through food.
No, I think that's super important. And nice touching on the trigger foods too, because that's also important. Chase says, can't work. I can't read. Can't outwork your diet. But what is your opinion on things like carb cycling, increasing protein after leg day? Are those things effective overall?
It depends on who you are. So carb cycling can be very effective for some people, and for others, it can be very ineffective and just more of a task than anything and make them give up. So yes, it can be super effective, and no, it could be not effective. It just really depends on who you are, what your goals are, what your background is, what kind of things are important in your life. Like, so many different factors play into that. Like I said, your diet is your diet. Sometimes carb cycling really works and sometimes it doesn't. Increased protein after leg day. Whatever muscles you're trying to build, you want to eat protein so that you can build those muscles. Whether it is right after or before, like within the 24 to 48 hours of like you trying to build that muscle is probably the most important time to make sure that you're getting adequate protein. But honestly, just try and get protein every day. That's the way I think about it.
Yeah, there's really no reason and no scientific studies that show benefits in protein cycling. Like, even when we go like through a dieting phase, we keep our protein the same as it was during a building phase, especially with all of our people are either vegan or plant-based. So we have to keep it up at that level just because of a little bit less bioavailability.
Exactly. And same for us. The only, like, we'll bring it down as we go into like more of a surplus because there's more food being used. But like, even when we go into like a deficit, we're increasing protein because it's so important to always have. And it doesn't matter what your workouts are. Like, you could be doing 0 workouts this week. I still want you to eat the same amount of protein.
Yeah, exactly. No, that doesn't change.
Your body still needs it. It's still super important, especially if you're trying to build and maintain the muscle and recover. Definitely necessary.
Right. I know, like, oh my gosh, this has really nothing to do with what you're talking about. But the people that like want to cycle their calories, so they like have this many on their workout days and then they have less on their recovery days. And that makes no sense. You need the calories on your recovery days so that you can recover.
Exactly. And like the days before training days, you want to also eat higher calories. It's honestly like, people think that the days of their training days is when they need to eat more, but realistically, it's the days before and the days after so that you have enough fuel for your workouts. And then you also are fueling afterwards to recover. And also, like, the different styles of fitness workouts, like, depend on whether you should try and have more before or after. But for me, I just think it's easier to like have a general basis for the week. And then, like, if I'm really hungry today, I'll eat more food today. There's probably going to be a day this week where I'm less hungry. That's just like naturally, if we're not tracking, we kind of calorie cycle like that. So fun things to pay attention to. Learn about yourself.
Yes, learn about yourself. I think that's huge. Responsibility. So, how does motivation play into this?
So motivation plays into this in a way that motivation kind of plays into everything. And there's, first off, we got to cover the difference between motivation and discipline. Motivation is something that comes in waves, and it goes away. It comes and it goes. Discipline is something that no matter what, you're still going to do it. Discipline is brushing your teeth every day because you don't want your teeth to fall out of your head. You don't want bad breath, so you brush your teeth every day. When you were younger, you were not disciplined to do it. Your parents or whoever took care of you had to tell you every single day, go brush your teeth, go brush your teeth, go brush your teeth. And you probably thought it was the most annoying thing in the world, but now you brush your teeth every day because you're like, oh, gotta go brush my teeth. Like, my breath's gonna be stinky if I don't. My teeth are gonna fall out of my head if I don't brush my teeth and take care of my like dental hygiene. Like, that's discipline that's just over time turned into what you do. You were not motivated to do that. I'm honestly, like, most days I'm like, I don't want to go brush my teeth, but I could do it anyway. Like, I'm not motivated to do it, I just do it. Same thing with showering. Like, you're probably not motivated to shower most of the time, but you just shower because it's what you do to take care of yourself. And so that's the really big difference between motivation and discipline, is like, people think motivation is what's going to get them to make the most changes, but it's really the discipline that gets you there, because motivation starts something, but it doesn't keep it going. You can start something, and I encourage you to start something when you're feeling motivated, but you're going to need to build the discipline to continue moving on with that to make positive changes. So in regards to eating and having this 80-20 balance, you're not going to have a perfect 80-20 balance to start. A lot of people start more of like a 50-50, maybe even like 40-60, and you got to really work towards it. And it's going to take more commitment and hard work initially, but over time, you start to learn, like, okay, I can still do this. Like, I'm less motivated to pay attention to my nutrition, but like, I realize it makes me feel good because you've been doing it for like 3-4 weeks. The initial motivation wears off, but like, okay, like, my digestion's better, my energy's better, my sleep's better, my skin looks better, I feel better in the gym. It's like, okay, like, I'm not motivated, but these things are nice, so I'm going to keep doing that. And over time, you work more towards that 80-20 balance. And it's not so much about being motivated to have an 80-20 balance, but being dedicated to continue to feel good. Like, I think we all know what it feels like to feel shitty, like to feel like garbage and wake up after a day of like, I don't know, maybe you had a day out in a new city where you're just exploring on vacation, and you had donuts for breakfast, and you had a smoothie, and you had ice cream, and you had whatever fried food for lunch, and then you went out for dinner and you had some like heavy meal, whatever it is. The next day you wake up and you feel like garbage. It doesn't feel good to feel that way. Like, you're not in that moment motivated to do anything. But if you have dedication to feel better, because you know what it feels like to feel better, it's the dedication that leads you to making more nutrient dense choices to feel better. It's okay to have days like that. We all have days like that, but it's the dedication that takes you out and brings you back to where you want to be and helps you to stay where you are. If you have one day like that, you're not going to lose all of your progress. If you lose progress, if you let one day turn into a week, turn into a month, turn into a year, because you lose that motivation. You're not going to be motivated in times where you feel like garbage.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important to note too, like, a lot of the times you'll go through that situation just like Hannah described, and then for whatever reason you decide to get on the scale, and then life just crashes down and you erased all of your progress. And like Hannah said, it's not true. A lot of what is reflected on the scale is simply water retention and inflammation. And it's
Mhm.
just your body's natural response. So if instead of quitting because you erased your progress, if you would just get back up and do the things that you know that you should do, that way it'll go away in a couple days and you'll be like, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't stop.
Mhm.
But first we
And
have to get out of our head.
yeah, and first you also have to figure out how to get to that place where like you know what to do. Because at the very beginning, if you go like 3 days of like taking your motivation, eating well, moving your body, and then you have a day like that, well, that motivation definitely hasn't turned into discipline yet. It's just like something that you had and you probably lost it. So then when you wake up that next morning, like you're not going to be disciplined to do what will make you feel better. And that's where it's important to, at the beginning of taking motivation and turning it into discipline, it's really important to be more on all of the time than have that off moment. But as you continue to work with discipline in the future, like it's okay to have a day like that, because most of the time you're doing the things that you need to do. But to get there, you don't want to start with everything all at once. I say this all the time. Don't start with everything all at once because it's overwhelming. Take your bout of motivation this month. Like maybe you're motivated once a week. Maybe you're motivated once a month. I feel like I usually get this like big drive of motivation like every couple of months. And it's like, okay, this is the time that I'm going to start something new. It's not the only time I start new things, but that's a time where I start a harder thing. So if there's one habit that you're like, I know this is going to make a change, what's that one habit? Next time you're feeling motivated, that's the time to start implementing that habit. Do that habit and only that habit, add only that habit in for that entire bout of motivation. And then just work to like dedicate yourself to keeping that new habit in your life until your next bout of motivation comes. And then with the next bout of motivation, like, cool, that habit's a habit. Now I'm going to add another one in. And think about if you do that, I said I get like big bouts of motivation every couple of months. So that's like 6 big habits a year. There's some little ones I can throw in with like small changes here and there, but like that's 6 big habits a year. Think about like 6 big habits. Drink 100 ounces of water a day. If you're drinking like 40 ounces of water a day, that's a big change. You're going to notice a lot of progress just from drinking that water. Go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time every day. That's a huge habit. That's going to make massive changes. Take 6 to 10,000 steps a day. If you're taking like 2 to 5,000 steps, massive changes that come from that. Notice I haven't even talked about nutrition or fitness. Those are 3 huge habits that can change your life. If you do one at a time, each time you feel motivated. And just turn that one thing into something that becomes discipline and stack the motivation bouts to become a more disciplined, fit, healthy human.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about stacking the habits. And I think that's really why so many people fail, is because they try to change everything at one time and there is no healthy foundation. So it just crumbles because, like you said, it's too hard, it's too overwhelming, and it's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Like imagine if you are someone who spends most of the day sitting, like playing video games, watching TV, you have a sedentary job, and then you're like, okay, someone said I have to take 10,000 steps a day. I'm going to take 10,000 steps a day. Someone else said I need to drink a gallon of water a day. I'm going to take 10,000 steps a day. I'm going to drink a gallon of water a day. And I need to eat 160 grams of protein when like you don't even know what protein is. And doing all of these things, even for 3 days, you're going to be like, screw that. This is way too hard. And so even with these habits, like I said, like aim to take like 6,000 to 10,000 steps every day. If you're the person who takes 2,000 steps a day, don't go right to 10,000 steps. Commit during your bout of motivation. Like, okay, I'm going to start walking for 15 minutes a day, maybe even 5 minutes a day. And then when you're like, okay, I've done 5 minutes a day for a week, like, let me add another 5 minutes and then another 5 minutes. It starts really small, but it makes a big change. because it feels so much more attainable when you're like going from 0 to 5 instead of 0 to
100.
take you to walk 4 miles like 2 hours. Like, that's a big change.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Lisa said that was great advice, and Chase says, brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. Think about it as like tiny bite-sized
Mhm.
snacks of habits.
Habit snacks. I like that.
I like that too. I might use that.
You should.
But yeah, like if you take that bite-sized habit, it turns into a bigger one. And then the next time you're motivated, start working on another bite-sized one. Turns into a bigger one. Bite-sized habit turns into a bigger one. If you do this 5, 6 times a year, those habits can change your life.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it's easier to become disciplined when you start small.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like part of our logo says that it's not a destination, it's a lifestyle. And in order to be fit and to be healthy and to maintain that, you have to shift your mindset, because being fit is not a destination and being healthy is not a destination. It's something that you have to work at constantly. But because you're working at it constantly doesn't also mean that you have to be miserable.
It gets easier the longer you do it.
Oh, heck yeah.
And like sometimes there are weeks, months where you're like, this is really freaking hard. Like, why was this so easy before? But then you get through that time and you're like, okay, this is still pretty easy.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
life has those moments. It is what it is. Like, but once you progressively add these teeny tiny bite-sized habits to each other, you're gonna have an entire pizza in no time. You're gonna look back and be like, where'd this pizza come from? It's from all those tiny bite-sized habits that you had.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So lots of mindset work. I know people think there's no, like, fitness has nothing to do with mindset, but it has everything to do with mindset.
Everything.
For sure. Does anyone have any questions on anything else? I know Hannah shared a lot of really great information. At the moment, we don't have anything on Facebook. If you're here and with us on the Zoom meet and you have questions, you can unmute, you can drop it in the chat.
Anything.
Couple more seconds here.
Questions. And then if anybody is watching, you have this in your Facebook group. So replay. If you're watching this, comment your questions. I love the bite-sized habits concept. Yeah, I just thought of that on the spot. I'm definitely going to keep going with that one. But if anybody has any questions after the fact, like, feel free to comment them. Clarissa can get them to me. I will respond.
Are you in the group? I thought you were in the group.
Am I in the group?
I have no idea. We're in too many groups.
For real.
Yeah,
I can keep track of my own group.
Yeah, for sure. We're not having any more come up on Facebook, so
cool.
That's awesome. All right. Well, we can go ahead and stop monopolizing your time tonight. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing some information with us. I thought it was super valuable. The chats say that it was super valuable. So I think it was a wonderful success. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yes, it was. I enjoyed it. So thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your night to everyone that's watching. Thanks for joining us, and you also enjoy the rest of your night.
Yeah, have a good night, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.